Okay, y'all, welcome back to the channel. I appreciate everybody that's been watching and subscribing. It's the new year, so let's start it off right and try and get some content out. Now, as you can see, I know in the last video this was what I was working toward and I just didn't get to it with all the other things that I needed to get done before I got to this point. So now I'm back on track trying to get these inner fenders in. There's a little bit of slop in this. Well, it's more or less, I think it's in the bushings. The holes in the center of those bushings is bigger than my bolt, and I don't have a sleeve to fit down in those bushings, so it's causing it to have a little bit more slack and movement than it should. So I may get some different bushings or something to tighten this up a little bit more. I may also do the cross brace that goes from, I believe it went from like right in here on the fender to the firewall, or I'll make a different type of brace for it if that's what it takes. I had to use a ratchet strap to kind of pull that back to get everything lined up on that inner fender. Now I don't know if that's, I'm still down a little bit on, you know, this is actually down a little further than what it should be, or that thing's just so mangled. It's been up the whole back area where it bolts to the firewall was really bad, been up, and it's still not perfect. But I've got all 4 bolts in the front, and then I've got 3 in the back out of the 5 or 6, and then I don't have any across the top for the fender excuse me, that bolts the fender to the inner fender. So but it's in there now. I need to, when it comes back out, I need to trim this a little bit more. When the suspension cycles, I believe this A-arm might clip it and hit it a little bit, so I'll trim it here, give it a little bit more room. The little flap down there where it kicks back toward the frame is rubbing the frame. I need to trim it just a little bit more. Front side is good. I had to trim around that radiator core front clip support bracket. I had to trim for it, and then it had a threaded hole right here in this corner for the bolt to thread through. Well, I have put a riv nut there, so instead of having it thread down into the inner fender, I've just got it threading into that riv nut, and this hole isn't actually threading into the inner fender. Shouldn't cause an issue, but I'm looking at it that I got this side on. I should be able to get the driver's side on. Now I know there's a lot more over here to somewhat mess with and be in the way, but I think my best bet on this side is probably going to be kind of do it the same. Get it up in there, take the fender down, get it up in there, mark where I need to trim it, but possibly do all that and get it in there before I get the brake booster mounted back. Maybe that'll give me a little bit more room. I can move that brake booster a little bit, so that may be what I do. Like I said in the last video, I know these inner fenders are not perfect. You can tell that one there, somebody's done some body work on it before. It's got some plastic filler in it, but they're in better shape than the ones that were in here, which was nothing. I'm not too concerned about the shape of them. Like I said, everything on the truck was rough when we started with it, and being that it's an inner fender, it's just gonna get beat to snot and back anyways. So later on down the road, I may do a little bit of work on them and weld up the few little rust holes that's there. Now I might actually, that flange that kicks back up under that back section right there on the front of the cab, it's really rotted out and rusted out. So I might actually redo that little flange there just because that's a bolt-in area. But as far as like these rust holes here and all that, I'm not going to worry about them. I'm just going to run them the way they are. But anything structural that, like, if I need to fix a few spots where bolt holes go or bolts go through or something like that, I'll take care of those few little areas. But I'm not going to put the time and effort into fixing everything wrong with these inner fenders. You're not really going to see them. I don't plan on trying to make a super spot clean engine bay. I'm going to somewhat make it nice. It's going to have a decent paint job as far as being cleaned up. I'm not going to say it's showroom quality or anything, but it'll have a decent looking paint job and whatnot. But if I got to take and slap some fiberglass over those few little rust holes there and hit it with a little bit of sandpaper just so whenever I paint it there's not a couple rust holes there, that's what I'll do for now. I'm not worried about it. I don't know. I think the driver's side is about in the same shape. As you can see, this whole corner here, that's the area that bolts to the cowl and fender and firewall there, right up back there. It's completely gone, so I'll have to rework that one before I can even get it bolted in. But yeah, that's what we're going to tackle first in this video. I'm going to go ahead and get those things in. That way, once those are in and bolted in, I know they'll be coming back out at some point. Everything will be coming back apart at some point. But I'm going to go ahead and get them in there. That way I know they're there. I know I can get them in there and use them. And I can start laying out all this engine bay wiring. Probably going to try to tackle that in this video also. As soon as I get the driver's side inner fender in and everything bolted up for the most part. I'm going to try to go through all my hardware, see exactly what I have, and see if I have enough of just matching miscellaneous bolts to run all my hardware that I need for them. If not, I'll make a list so I can pick some up. But once I get this side in, we're going to start on the engine bay wiring. Just because I want to get it out of the way. I want to figure out exactly where we're going to mount the fuse box. Considering I don't have a lot of slack in that wire for the bulkhead that goes through the firewall, so I'm kind of limited on how far that thing can go, that fuse box can go. So I just want to get an idea for where everything's going to mount. If this ABS module is going to be in the way of the fuse block and all that, I wouldn't think it would be. It wasn't on the Ranger, so surely we can make it work here. I think we have quite a bit more engine bay space than the Ranger did. It's quite wider. So, but yeah, I'm probably going to call it a night tonight. It's New Year's Eve. I finished our other video and got it edited and uploaded and everything this evening, so y'all have a little bit of content for the new year. And I'm going to try and bust this one out as quick as I can, but it's already pretty late. I think it's 11 or a little after 11 o'clock, so I'm going to call it an evening, get cleaned up, go enjoy the new year, and we'll see you guys in the morning. Okay, y'all, so both inner fenders are in. I'm pretty pleased with them, other than the few little rough spots where they're rusted out. I'll get those took care of. Those areas don't necessarily need to be fixed for me to figure out the wiring, so that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go ahead and start getting an idea of where everything's going to lay. I'll probably, more than likely, I'll get everything laid up here and just see where stuff's going to somewhat fall. And then I'll get my bulkhead connector through the firewall there. And that'll somewhat be my starting point before I actually get anything out here mounted under the engine bay. So I'm gonna get you set up and we'll see if we can get some more wiring figured out. I've been a little bit busy this evening, and I have gotten a good little bit done. I'll go through and show you exactly what I've gotten done. But bulkhead is in through the firewall, connected. I had to make a bracket to mount this, and the easiest way I found to do it was to do it off of the brake booster. And I know this is a lot thicker material than what I could have got away with using, but I had it and I had plenty of it, so that's what I used. So we should never have to worry about it. I did end up taking this little metal mounting bracket off of the fuse block, and I flipped it around. This tab did come off on this side, and I just really couldn't get it to lay any certain way in here for me to be able to make a bracket for it to bolt to and it be low enough. So that was the easiest solution with that. ABS module is mounted, bolted in. There was actually conveniently 2 holes in this fender already. Look like self-tapper holes. I just had to drill them out a little bit bigger, and I put some riv nuts or threaded inserts in them. And that's what I've got holding it down. And I've done a little bit of zip tying. Now I know the majority of this is probably going to come back apart, so I'll probably be clipping zip ties, but I'm just doing it in a sense of at least I'll know I can get stuff in secured, zip tied. I've got plenty of zip ties, so if we waste some zip ties, that's all right. It's not a big deal. I had to trim these holes. There was a factory circle hole here for the wiring to come through. It wasn't big enough, so I just trimmed it out kind of rectangular shape because one of the plugs on this wiring harness is quite bigger. Done the same thing on this side. I'm not quite sure if that's where that harness is going to stay or not. Unfortunately, I don't have this top radiator support and the hood latch bolts there and all that. I don't have that piece, so I'm either gonna find one, buy a new one, or I'm gonna make one myself. I haven't decided exactly what I'm gonna do yet, but my thought is being that that's zip tied up there and secured pretty well, except for right in the middle. Once that panel's made, that wiring should be hid behind it or under it. So I think that'll work, and then what little bit of slop is there in the center, we can just make a point on the inside of that structure panel, or that panel that we can secure that to. None of this side is secured yet. Not quite sure how I'm going to do it yet, and I'm also I want to make sure what all I have to mount on this side. Something I've been thinking about, I know it's going to be a headache to do, but I've got to do firewall work still because I'm not going to leave all those holes open like that. So I have the factory HVAC, heat, AC, the whole complete HVAC box assembly, AC box assembly, and all of it out of the Ranger. There may be a few things like some vacuum lines or some stuff like that I'm missing, some small stuff, but as far as the boxes and all that, I have all of that. My thought is do I go ahead now and try to graft that into the firewall, or do I wait and do that later? So I'm kind of toying with that idea. I know that's going to add a lot more work trying to get that thing grafted into this firewall, but we're already here. So I'm toying with the idea of just going ahead and doing it. My one downside to that is I really want the truck to have heat and air, obviously, but I do not like the AC side of this system because it's all protruded out on the firewall side and sticks out in the engine bay, and it just takes up quite a bit of space in this corner of the engine bay, and I'm just not a big fan of it. So that's my one downside with it, and the one reason I'd rather run like a vintage air kit or something like that, or find a different factory style air box out of HVAC box out of something and make it work in this. But anyways, that's something I am toying with the idea with. But as far as wiring goes, I've gotten a little bit sorted. The main portion, the bulkhead through the firewall, is took care of. I have not done the bulkhead through the floor of the cab yet. I will get that took care of. But as much as I want to get this done, unfortunately, I'm going to stop where I'm at here for time being and put a pin in this, because I was going to order some parts for this today. I was going to get a gasket set and head bolts, and I have to have the date code or the manufacturing date for this engine to order parts for it. And the truck it come out of is accessible. I can get the date code from the truck, but the issue with that is this motor was not the factory motor from the truck. It had already been replaced before. So I don't know that it would match up with the date, manufactured date from the truck. So I've done a little bit of looking online. I haven't really found anything telling me where to go to find if this has a date, manufacturing date stamped on it somewhere or not. But I'm probably gonna take the rest of the evening and start tearing this thing back down. I'll probably get it pulled out of the corner and out here where it's out in the open, and I'm probably gonna get it tore back down, unfortunately, and try to see if I can find a date stamp somewhere on it. I'm hoping there's one on it somewhere. We'll see what I can find. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm not gonna video any of it, but I've got to figure out exactly how to get parts, and I need the date to do that. So if I can't find a date off of this, I'm probably just going to use the manufacturing date from the truck it come out of, even though it was a second-hand engine when it was put in there. So I will see you guys in the morning. as you can see, been a little busy. I went ahead and dropped the engine and transmission back in, just so I can get wiring, make sure all that's good. What I'll probably end up doing is, when I get everything ready to do the engine work, I'll pull the engine and transmission back out, and I'll get it all cleaned up, painted, and ready to drop back in. And before it gets dropped back in, or while we have it out, we'll redo the firewall, get it all done, buttoned up and painted and ready, and inner fenders and all that. We'll just do all that when we're at that point. I just wanted to go ahead and get as much of the wiring figured out, anything that we can get in and mounted, and figure out where it needs to go and how it needs to be mounted. If we need to make some type of bracket or whatever, we can go ahead and do that. Now, after I got the engine and transmission set in it, or after we got it, Jovan helped me out there, I've got the throttle cable in. I need to do a little bit of work on this bracket here. It needs to come back just a little bit to be able to get that throttle cable to snap in. And then I haven't got the pedal mounted yet, but I've got the pedal in here. I'm starting to get an idea of where it's gonna sit and all that. Now, keep in mind, I'm not too concerned with the space between the brake pedal and the transmission tunnel, because when we swap this out for a brake pedal assembly with the clutch pedal and all that, that brake pad pedal there will be smaller, so it'll be more of a square, so we'll end up with more room between the brake pedal and the gas pedal. I got the bulkhead through the floor. It's through and connected and done. I don't think the thickness of this metal is going to affect it. If we get to the point of where we're getting ready to start, you know, getting the engine fired up and running and all that, if we have issues with the back half of the frame getting power and all that, that'll probably be the first thing I address. Pull it back out and connect it without it being in the middle, and see if that's the issue or not. If it is, I'll do a little thicker, thinner piece of metal there. But that's where I ended up sticking it. I had actually pulled all this back loose and brought it over to this side, and I tried to run it down this way here, but it was trying to put that plug like right in here, and that was too far forward with this bracing and all that. So, and I didn't want it past roughly right in here, because hopefully that's where the seat's gonna be, and you know, I didn't want it exposed out from under the seat. Even if we put carpet, you'd still possibly be resting a foot on it or anything like that. So it's tucked back. We'll get that wiring took care of. I think we have enough slop and movement in that wire that we should be able to get it laid down and not have to worry about it. I got the gear shifter set back in there just for time being. Been looking at some stuff on the inside for interior wise, getting a game plan going. But yeah, I'm hoping the hole that I put through the firewall for the throttle cable, I believe that'll work in reference to where I plan on mounting the gas pedal. If not, I guess I'll move it, but that was the best spot for me to put it, I guess you could say, with the bracing and the brake booster and all that in there and what's on the firewall. But it's in. It's snapped into the firewall and hooked to the pedal. I've just got to get it. This bracket itself needs to come back just ever so slightly, about an inch, half inch or so, so I can actually get it snapped in. So I'm gonna probably cut that bracket up a little bit and just move it back a little bit It shouldn't affect anything else. When we do put cruise control on it, I'll get all that figured out. I don't know if it mounted to that same bracket or if it was a different bracket. I don't remember, but it will end up probably with the cruise control back on it. I know I'd said something about changing the steering wheel and stuff. If I can pull it off, relocating the controls for the cruise control off of the steering wheel to maybe up on the dash or something, I'll do that. But that steering wheel's in rough shape. The buttons are wore out and messed up, so even if we do reuse the cruise control, I'll try and find a steering wheel that's in better shape. But I'm picking away at a little of it. I'm not really sure what the game plan is for today. I'm probably going to start picking away at some more of this wiring. I have the engine harness is actually, that would be battery harness. It goes down to the starter, over to the alternator, and all that. I've got it off right now. And then this plug here would be where the engine harness plugs to. I have not figured out exactly where I'm going to mount the computer yet. I don't know if I'm going to pull it back up and do it under the firewall. The way the Ranger was set up, there was a box like built into the firewall. It bolted in and the plug just plugged in from the engine bay side. What I might do is just run the wire inside the cab, put a grommet around the wire so it's sealed up, and actually hang the computer on the firewall. That way I don't have to like that way I don't have to make a box. I can't talk today, I'm sorry. That way I don't have to make a box onto the firewall for it to actually mount into. It had a little rubber cover and all that to seal it up. I kept the cover and everything just because I didn't know exactly what I would end up doing to mount it. But it should be pretty simple that I could make a bracket to mount it on the firewall up underneath the dash, and that's probably where it'll end up going. I'll just get a rubber grommet to seal that up around the firewall. That's the plan I'm thinking. I just don't want it out here on the firewall in the engine bay, or me having to do a lot of extra work. I have a starter. One of the ears mounting holes is broke off, but the two other ones are still good. So I think I should be able to get a starter mounted in it. We can use it for reference. The starter wires unfortunately got cut on the harness. I don't remember why or how or the reasoning, but somehow the starter wires got cut off the harness. So I'll have to redo those. There was another wire I remember cutting. I believe it went to some of the AC stuff. I just couldn't get to the plug to get it unhooked without taking the box and all that out. And I ended up doing that later, and I just cut the plug. So there is two or three wires that's been cut off this harness that I'll have to deal with later, but I'm not going to mess with that right now. What I think I am going to do right now is I'm probably going to try and get some bolts round up and found, and try and get this power steering pump bracket and AC pump bracket and all that mounted back on the front of the engine, just so I know it don't have a water pump on it and it mounts to the front of that. I might not even mount it. I may just try. I want to try to get it somewhere where it's not drooped down and hanging and pulling on the hoses, but I want to get this corner free. I'm also probably going to start trying to get an idea of a battery box or a mounting location where I'm going to put the battery. It probably will end up going under the hood somewhere. in the engine bay. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to start moving a few things around, picking around at some wiring, and kind of pondering on a few things like the battery tray and stuff like that. So let me set you up on the tripod, and I'm going to see what we can't get accomplished today. Probably won't be a lot. It's going to be some small stuff, tedious stuff, but let's see what we can get knocked out. Okay, y'all. So, as you can see, I've gotten a little done. Now, what I ended up deciding to do, I know I didn't film any of it, and it was just because I was nitpicking at small stuff and rounding up bolts and hardware, going through and finding everything I needed back to get all this stuff mounted. I got the power steering pump, AC compressor, and all that. That bracket's back up. Alternator bracket's back on. The alternator's no good. I've got it up there for reference for height, and I want to put the hood on and make sure nothing's going to hit the hood at some point. And then just running plugs and making sure everything's going to work and whatnot. But making good progress. Most of the engine wiring is plugged up. There's a couple things like I don't have a crank sensor right now, so it's not plugged up. I need to get a crank sensor. I didn't plug up the fuel injectors just because I didn't want to have to get off in there and mess with those. So I mean, there's a few things that's not plugged up right now. I haven't put the battery side in yet. I'll get that done. But good progress. There's a few things that I have that's just kind of plugged up and laying. I'm just getting all my wiring figured out. I don't think there was really any issue with anything. I did have an issue. I don't really have enough room here. My power steering pump and ABS control module is fighting for real estate there. So if I end up having to do something there, I ended up getting it to fit, but it's really tight. So what I might do is I might notch the bracket that mounts the ABS. I might notch it to clear, or I might move these holes up just a little bit to bring that thing up and just give it a little bit more room. The only thing I'd really be concerned with is once we got it running, the vibrations. If that line is rubbing for the power steering pump, which I think it is, it'd probably end up rubbing a hole through the line, and I'd rather not have to deal with that. So, but good progress. I would probably say the majority of the engine bay wiring is took care of. Now there's a lot of zip tying and stuff like that left to do, and I'm not concerned with all that. Just stuff along the sides and all that is what I was mainly worried about, getting zip tied and mounted and stuff for now. All the engine wiring, we'll get all that zip tied and strapped up and done when we're actually getting it buttoned up for the last time. But I think I'm probably going to call this a video. Like I've said before, I'm trying to keep them a little on the shorter side, and I've gotten quite a bit accomplished in this video. May not really seem like it, but I've got a lot more time in all this wiring stuff than it would seem. Just getting it stretched out and ran, and a game plan for things to go and mount, and just refiguring out plugs and where everything plugs and stuff like that, what won't be used right now and what. So yeah, I think I'm gonna call this a video. In the next one, we'll probably pick back up buttoning up a few things under the engine bay, try and get the gas pedal mounted. Not really sure what else. I'll probably sit down this evening, or now it's already about 10 o'clock in the evening, so I'll probably sit down after I'm done with this, maybe while I do a little editing, and maybe work on a game plan for the next video and see exactly what all I want to tackle. But I just want to say, everyone, I appreciate everyone watching. I appreciate everyone subscribing. It really means a lot. The channel's growing, and I'm pushing to keep y'all entertained and hopefully get some new content coming. I've got some things planned. It's just getting things to line up and getting caught up on this to a point that I'm happy and ready to step away from it for a little bit. I know everybody's probably burnt out on this just as much as I am, but we got to get it done. So I just want to say thanks. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.